Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my takeout, my Emil Amok's takeout. Why are you coming at us so late, Emil? It's like on the East Coast, this could be like a late night talk show. Maybe this is where you belong. Or on the West Coast, it's like dinner time. I'm hungry. My guest is hungry. Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez will join me in a second. He's hungry. But yeah, we're going to talk about all sorts of stuff coming up, including Lal Perholes, who was a San Francisco State student during the time Professor Dan taught there. He was recently murdered by the Philippine NPA or by the Philippine police. And the story has sort of trickled through different, slowly. I saw it in the San Francisco Standard. We'll talk about that when we come back. Also talk about the Pope, 1 year for the Pope. And we're going to talk about our moms. Moms. It's appropriate. Mother's Day's coming up. Don't forget your mom. All right. Don't forget this show, too. This show right here. Emil Amok 69, Anchorman. It's one in the series of Emil Amok monologues, the Amok monologues that I do. And I'm taking it to the San Diego International Fringe Festival. Go to sdfringe.org for tickets. sdfringe.org for tickets. Look up, try to find, put up Emil Amok and it'll take you to the page where you can buy tickets. I open on Wednesday, the 14th, and then take it through to the 23rd. It's a fun time. I like San Diego. A lot of Filipinos in San Diego. I hope they all show up for my show. Emil Amok, or 69, Emil Amok. I explain why it's 69. It's kind of sexy. No. Emil Amok, of course. Anchorman. Why Anchorman? Well, I was an anchor. And there I will be in San Diego, the home of Ron Burgundy. We're going to try to keep it classy, San Diego. It sounds like a fun show, but I also understand you talk about the President of the United States in these times we live in. Yeah, I talk about how hard it is to get news in these times, which is why I do this instead of the news. I do a kind of a hybrid. And the show, 69 Emil Amok, Anchorman, is about my journey in news. Come see it. It's at the New Destiny Church in San Diego opens on the Wednesday, and then it goes to the 23rd. Come see it, please. Tickets are inexpensive. 90-seat theater, fun, intimate, and you'll laugh, you'll learn, you'll say, oh, why? I want to see this over again. It's so good. sdfringe.org for tickets. San Diego Fringe. And it's I'm on this tour. I'll go from San Diego to Atlanta, then I'll go to Winnipeg, then I'll come back, maybe do something here in California, in the city, San Francisco. Maybe I'll even go to New York at some point. But check me out starting next week, sdfringe.org. Okay, now let's bring up my friend, Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, San Francisco State University Professor Emeritus. And Dan, thank you very much for joining. We're late because I wasn't feeling so great yesterday, but thank you for joining late. You're
Sure.
not late, I'm late. I wasn't feeling great early.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad we're able to do this. I was
Yeah.
going to put it off until tomorrow, but I know that you have a pretty strong Friday audience, even though, you can see this as a podcast in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, listen, I just thought that there was some stuff to talk about. And, we got our mothers to talk about. We got, um, and also the Pope. Pope is 1 year old today. Leo the 14th, 1 year old.
Yeah, as Pope, yes.
as Pope. He's not. Well, he's actually 69. You know.
And he got yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of Vatican jokes around that, but
yeah, yeah. So all right. So let's talk about Lal Prijoles because I didn't know about this. I saw it in the San Francisco Standard, and people who it's. I mean, it's important to talk about. He died. Uh, he died. Let's see. It was in a beachside village in Toboso in Negros Occidental. The 40-year-old was killed April 19th in a firefight between the Philippine Army and members of the Communist New People's Army. So it was the Army versus the Communist New People's Army insurgency. He was one of 19 people who died that day in an incident that remains disputed. Two of the dead were Filipino Americans, U.S. citizens, Prijoles and Kai Dana Sorum, 26 of Seattle. And I'm sure it's disputed because, well, you got the Army saying one thing and the MPAA saying another. The Army's official statement says troops engaged in armed group in early morning, resulting in running firefights throughout the day. It characterized the 19 dead as enemy combatants, calling the operation a significant blow to the communist terrorist group's operational capability. The New People's Army has acknowledged that 10 of the dead were members of its armed revolutionary group, but claims the others, 2 children, a journalist, a student leader, and a handful of activists, including Prijoles and Sorum, pose no military threat. So that's basically the story. Friends are getting the news now, but it was published this week, stories about this, but the death occurred back in on April 19th. What have you heard, Dan, in amongst your sources in the Filipino American community?
yeah, well, my sources that I rely on students,
Mm-hmm.
and there have been LFS. I was an advisor to LFS for some time.
LFS being
The League of Filipino Students. It
mm,
was the original Filipino student organization at SF State was PACE,
right.
the Philippine American Collegiate Endeavor at the time. It is now known as the Philippine X
Mm,
Collegiate Endeavor, American Collegiate Endeavor, and that's fine. There's some issues around that. I know that we're going to feature discussions about culture,
mm,
both Philippine to the extent that we can as Filipino Americans, but especially Filipino American culture in future discussions. And this is directly related. The circumstances that we're facing right now with the death of a San Francisco State graduate who was a member of LFS, an earlier similar situation where the person who was attacked by the Philippine military survived was Brandon Lee, who
mm.
was the victim of an armed attack by the military in a different part of the Philippines, in the northern area of Luzon.
Around the same time.
Rather, no, this was around 2017.
Oh,
Brandon
all
Lee
right,
was
earlier.
attacked. But
Yeah.
I bring that up both because they're graduates of SF State. They took Asian American Studies classes, and in
Mm,
those classes, when we discuss Philippine history, particularly when I discuss Philippine history as a part of Filipino American history, we're an immigrant society, Filipino Americans in the United
mm,
States. It's a continuous process. And that process began in earnest, recognized as immigrants, right? Officially recognized as immigrants at the latter part of the 19th century. And it's continued since then. Both of our parents were immigrants.
yeah.
And there's a continuing process. So there's a continuing relationship between what happens in the Philippines and what happens in the United States. And there's a continuing link between those in the United States, whether they be immigrants or the progeny, right? The sons and daughters, grandsons, granddaughters of immigrants.
Yeah.
that link them when they desire to learn about the condition of the Philippines. And they do learn that in our
Right.
classes in Asian American studies. They learn that in other ethnic studies classes on other campuses and universities as well. Some
Yeah.
learn it even in high school because
Well,
of ethnic studies.
this is the thing about being Filipino that some people don't understand, that because we have immigrant parents, I mean, because Lau Praholis was born here in America,
Mhm.
and so was the other fellow from Seattle, Sorum, who were killed in this April 19th incident. And, we're just now getting information about their deaths and stories this week. But, some people might think, oh, why are the Filipinos so connected? Like, Lau Praholis was a Filipino American. He was here. He was studying. He studied at SF State. He was just, let's see, he was how old again? 26? Was he? Was
No,
he
no,
that?
he's 40.
Oh, 40. Sorry, Sorum was uh, was 26. But the thing about La Proholis is that why you live your life, and it's almost inseparable. The Philippines is almost inseparable from U.S. And you think, oh well, didn't we solve that when we got rid of Marcos? When the U.S. got rid of Marcos, and
Yeah, but
you
we
know,
got another Marcos.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing
uh,
about the thing about Proholis is that he was 40 and he still saw the urgency to make life better in the Philippines, rather than it's almost. I don't think he was dual citizen. He was an American citizen, but it was
I've
almost
had
like,
many I've had many students do what Lyle was doing, just not as long as Lyle and Brandon Lee before
yeah,
him were doing it. I mean, he's committed the better part of 20 years to this activity. And so there's two things I think that need to be underscored. One, even the NPA says that he was not a member of the NPA.
right,
Therefore, he should not have been subjected to being killed by the military. I don't know if you can avoid that when you're in the same area, right, that happens to be populated by members of the NPA, and you're working with farmers and farm workers that were being organized by these people. I've had other students very close to me that I've known quite well that went there, did the same kind of activity on a shorter term in order to understand in reality what was going on, and who very nearly escaped with their lives when they were only doing a demonstration, right?
right.
Political demonstration, and they were set upon by local police and by the military. One of those individuals is now an associate professor at a local Bay Area community college, and I do keep in contact with him. The Many of these people who were former members of PACE and also members of LFS keep in close contact with each other, and that is the source of my information.
All
So
right.
that's as much as I know. I do remember Lyle. I would need it would be unfair of me to claim that he had taken my class, but in all likelihood he probably did, because I taught the Filipino American history class
Mhm.
continuously throughout the period that he and Brandon attended SF State.
Yeah, and Brandon Lee is also happens to be the chairperson of the U.S. chapter of the International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines.
That's right.
Uh,
That's correct.
the assassination he survived was in 2019 by the Philippine Army. He was paralyzed, and he was close with Proholis. Proholis was a godfather of his child.
Yeah.
Brandon Lee was just 20. Oh no, no, I don't know how old Brandon Lee. Sorum, the other guy from Seattle, was 20. Was 26. But this is an ongoing thing. And back to my question: why is it that Filipinos who are sons and daughters of the Philippine immigrants still feel that connection to the Philippines, that this is a commitment to
It's
make
a
things better in the Philippines?
yeah. I have that same commitment. I just don't have the kind of commitment that these people developed over, from their experience at SF State, and other experiences that they've enjoyed with other college people at the time they were in school. They also did a lot of community service. He also was active at Bindlestiff,
Right, the
the
theater.
Center for Filipino American Creative Theater Activity, and all related forms of performance. So, so yeah, they identify with this. It's
Yeah.
really simple. I identify with being the son of immigrant parents. I identify with the conditions in the Philippines.
Mhm.
There were times when I actually had the opportunity to do activity, as a professor, actually, in a really privileged position to work in the Philippines on a few trips that I took
Yeah.
there, particularly in the 90s. And so there's a close association between my experience, how I taught my classes, how I saw what the conditions were in the Philippines, what I personally experienced, particularly when I took two trips to the Philippines as the faculty escort for students from San Francisco State and UC Berkeley. So we
Yeah.
saw a lot of stuff. We experienced a lot of things, and these people experienced far more than most of us ever will. There
Yeah.
were
Well,
students. There were students on those trips that went there specifically to attend school, but then they returned to the Philippines to do social and political service
right.
afterward, after those
And,
activities.
and this is Proholi's biography, which I'm reading from the San Francisco Standard article. He grew up in San Diego before attending SF State, had traveled to the Philippines repeatedly as part of solidarity exposure trips organized by
Yes,
Bay Area human rights groups such as Bayan USA.
yes, very
Participants
common
meet with
experience.
Yeah, they meet with farming families, hear their stories, try to understand the conditions that political organizing back home can only begin to address. The goal, according to Sadie Stone, who is a San Francisco United Methodist minister who worked alongside Proholis, is their biggest request is always to take our stories and share them with the world. And so that was how he saw it. This is a quote from Melissa Reyes, who is a librarian at the San Francisco Public Library's Filipino Center, which we were speaking at last week. She says that among young Filipino Americans, the uh, history connects with an ancestry they wish to understand. She says the questions we ask ourselves about why our families had to leave, those answers can be found in the conditions of the people. And so this is why people seek to learn more about ethnic studies. Ethnic studies isn't just about basket weaving. It's not just really the historical part about, going back in time, but it helps to understand the present conditions. And I imagine that's why a lot of young Filipino Americans are they swarm to these Filipino American history classes, both at the JC level and at the SF State level and at the UC Berkeley level, because they want to learn more. They want to know more.
They have an interest in they have humanitarian inclinations. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
these may come from as a result of their activities in religion, right? They may belong to church organizations when they're kids growing up. It may come from their own familial practice, that they may have family that have been engaged in political or social service kinds of activities in the Philippines. You have to remember that it's that part of our culture is humanitarian service. I mean, women and a lot more men as well don't become nurses and doctors
Right.
because they want to make money. Okay,
Right.
that may be a motivation here in the United States, but the tradition of service, humanitarian service, is a very strong tradition in
Right.
Philippine culture. In Philippine culture, and then the colonization process, right, made it possible for a formalization, right, of medical education in not only medicine but also in the sciences and engineering, right? And that all became part of Philippine culture, but it was a Philippine culture that looked ahead to immigration. In other words, it was a culture that saw education as a way out and away from the Philippines,
Mhm.
most notably to the United States, although
Right.
a lot of people also migrated to Europe. And in the Vietnam era, beginning in the Vietnam era, they also migrated to the Gulf states,
Yeah.
the
Oh,
UAE, Saudi
hey,
Arabia.
and let's not forget Canada. Canada was also,
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah,
yeah, it's almost like US, right? But
yeah,
Canada actually, it was easier to get to Canada between the mid 50s
yeah,
and the passing of the Immigration Reform Act in 65. It was easier to get in through Canada. But then
yeah,
a lot of people did secondary migration and moved into the United States after being situated in Canada for a while and fulfilling whatever contractual obligations they had
yeah.
with the Canadian hospitals, and then they came in and down, and it's really obvious they came down to Detroit.
Yeah. What's funny is that when you think about how people look at um, Filipinos and their migration or immigration, they see it in terms of the diaspora,
Right,
and if you use that as the focus for, well, why did we have to leave? That gets you into history. That gets you into wanting to learn more about what were the causes, what was so either bad about the Philippines, or what made the Philippines unlivable. Was it the politics? Was it the um, you know the class economics? Was it the suppression? I mean, this is where the curiosity begins, and you get to the answers, and uh, this is you get to understand the modern Philippines more when you see, oh, look at this diaspora, look where everyone is, and you mentioned UAE, Middle East, as well as Israel.
it depends on what the circumstances are at the time. What are the global circumstances? Where do people
Yeah,
go? And now there's going to be certainly there's going to be an attempt to squelch immigration from Asia as well as they've tried to squelch immigration from Africa and Latin America, particularly.
yeah,
Um, the thing that bothers me is it's also part of Filipino culture to just keep your head down and not be as engaged. And when you ask why are these people willing to, I think you're asking why are they willing to risk themselves in this fashion. And Lyle and Brandon and many others, even those students who are only there for a period of time, right, on exposure
mhm.
tours, they are taking a risk by going
Yeah,
there,
oh,
and
yeah,
they're willing to take that risk because not only are they curious, they also want things to change in the Philippines.
right.
They want positive change.
Well,
They see the
yeah,
poverty, they see the political skew in the Philippines that is uh, unlivable by our
yeah.
standards, by American standards, is unlivable. It's inhumane.
And it's the reason why people left. And once they understand that, and if you have that curiosity and the humanity to try to find out the answers, you go back into history, you go back to the Philippines, and you try to understand that, and that's how you live your life. And so,
Well, they're looking for justice. It's just
yeah,
that they're looking for justice in a way that where they identify strongly with the condition of people in the Philippines, even though they're not technically from there. They weren't born there. Uh,
mm,
but that's how strong it is. And I
yeah,
really respect and admire that. The thing about Filipino American culture is that people who have succeeded here, right, many of them have succeeded by keeping their heads down, by
mm,
not being, not only fully informed about what's going on in the Philippines, but not really having a commitment to justice that's strong enough for them to want to be informed and then to act on it, by sending
Yeah.
money back to the Philippines. The Filipinos send money back to the Philippines. Remuneration is a big industry, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
Remittances. Yeah.
yeah, but the remittances are big time.
Billions.
But
Billions.
they send it to their families. They don't send it to organizations necessarily that are in the activity of directly addressing social and economic needs among the most needy populations in the Philippines, and that's a problem. The last time that I was in the Philippines, the last couple of times, I talked to people who ran social service organizations, and they were getting more money, and it was visible. They were getting more money from European donors than they were from Filipino American donors, because the pattern of donation is that Filipino American immigrants, particularly the immigrant generations, the people who are first generation, send money back to their families. They're very distrustful of institutions because they're very distrustful of government.
Yeah, and that's sort
Does
of.
that sound familiar?
Yeah, that's kind of par these days. Yeah. Well, anyway, I wanted to bring up Perholes' story. The Standard was the first place where I heard about this. Perholes was from Negros Occidental, which produces more than half of the Philippine sugar, yet is one of its poorest regions. And so,
yes, and it has been for forever.
So this is, as for generations, community organizers say vast hacienda-style landholdings have kept farm workers from benefiting from their labor, with their wages locked in cycles of debt to the families whose land they work. Peasant organizers have spent decades pushing for land reform and living wages, efforts that the military has repeatedly met with violence, according to rights groups. So we have to go back to Perholes' situation. It was April 19th. There was attacks between the Philippine Army and the New People's Army, the communist activists, the New People's Army. And some people, like journalists and students and people like Perholes and another Filipino American, Kai Dana Sorum, may have been caught in the crossfire. The government says, the official army statement says, it's they had running firefights, and the new NPA says 10 of the dead were members of its armed revolutionary group, but the others were not. And Brandon Lee says it's standard for the military to red tag or publicly label civilians and journalists as communist rebels. Lee said the army is tarnishing the reputation of Lyle and the other civilians massacred through lies. And so, at the very least, we can participate in getting the truth out about what happened, that Lyle Perholes was not, a member of the NPA, that he was an activist, a Filipino American, and he was gunned down by the Philippine Army in a skirmish on April 19th. We only hear about it now. I think it's because the families are trying to get the word out. And I'm sorry that I just didn't know about this soon enough, but it's sad that this is happening. And they're protesting at the consulate. Is that something that could help the Philippine consulate?
Sure, it always does. I mean, protests, demonstrations always bring attention to the issue. The question is, what will people do about it? And the Philippine government isn't going to do anything about this issue.
Yeah.
The question is whether or not the United States government is going to do anything about this issue. And from the historical experience that we've had, particularly with the first Marcos administration, which lasted almost 20 years.
Who in the United States government, in this present administration, would you feel likely?
No one.
Yeah.
No one. There might be West Coast members of the House of Representatives, particularly very left-leaning members, like those from Seattle and San Francisco. But even Miss Pelosi, I wouldn't count on her coming out strongly about this issue, or the United States aid to the Philippines. And right now, I'm sure there's been some cutbacks. I wanted to check on that before we came
Yeah.
on, but I want to know what are the levels of U.S. aid that are going to the Philippines, because the United States has curtailed aid globally.
Yeah. But the aid to the Philippines, I don't think was as significant. Well, it was large, but not as significant as the aid to Africa. But I don't know. I don't know how much USAID.
Well, the aid to the Philippines is the renewed aid, and this took time to develop because the Philippines voted in the early '90s,
Mhm.
right, to close down the American bases. But I argued that that was really an abrupt and insufficiently uh, thought out
Yeah.
process, and that inevitably there would be a return of a U.S. military presence to the Philippines, both for the interests of the Philippines, with China being very aggressive in the South China Sea,
Yeah.
and that still exists today, right? China's aggression and potential aggression towards Taiwan. All of those kinds of things meant that the U.S. would be interested in reestablishing its presence in the Philippines, and the Philippines would be willing to welcome them. That is one of the forms of assistance that clearly comes from the United States and
Right.
goes to the Philippines,
But
you know,
but
and it's not
but
humanitarian
if you
aid.
were going to go and seek help from Congress I mean, they're calling this movement the Justice for Lao Proholes and the Toboso 19, because Toboso is the town in where the killing took place, Toboso and Negros Occidental. So it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, what would they really be able to do? I like I said, I don't expect anybody. I especially don't expect Pelosi to be critical of this situation.
Yeah.
The most that they could do is say that this should be investigated. Maybe take a UN position. Talk about the United States, or there being third party investigations into what's going on there.
Yeah.
But that's highly unlikely, because it's not in the interest of the United States, as the United States has posed
Yeah.
itself, the global stance that it's taken, and even in a post-Trump administration.
Well,
There's not much that they would do without really aggressive representation.
well, right now you got Trump going to see Xi soon. You got the war. You got
And he's going to go. He's going to go on with knee pads
yeah.
on.
Well, yeah.
Right?
I mean, and the Chinese, they're pretty much in control there, and you got the situation with the Gulf, or not the Gulf, but the Strait, and Iran, and
And the Chinese are dependent, very
right,
much so,
right, and so
on oil.
I don't know. This becomes one of the unfortunate.
Oh, and so is the Philippines.
Yeah, well, it becomes an unfortunate casualty of our awareness. We, it
I agree.
it
And
gets
that, once
lost.
again, is a cultural factor. That is a cultural
It
factor.
gets lost.
Many Filipino immigrants, particularly post 65 immigrants,
Mhm.
right? And then again, post martial law immigrants, post 80s immigrants. As I said, feel that success in America means, aside from your familial relations,
Mhm.
right? Setting aside Philippine politics, uh, uh, they only go back there to visit family, and actually to enjoy the value of the dollar,
Yeah.
in the Philippines, which is, you can
50
really
pesos.
enjoy
50 pesos to
enjoy
a
things.
dollar.
Yeah, well, yeah, they spell it piso. If you
Piso.
look at the bill, it's PI
Piso.
SO.
Yeah,
Yeah,
piso.
piso, and they do that, I think, to distinguish it obviously from the peso.
Piso, yeah.
But anyway, moving on.
Well, I
Yeah,
just
so
I think it's good that I finally was. I mean, I was made aware of this by my daughter, who's starting Filipino studies and
And she's only half
yeah,
Filipino.
well,
Oh, and she's interested.
she
Oh my gosh.
well,
What's
she
happening?
told me about it, and I said I don't know this guy Lau Perholes, and I questioned why was he so strongly an advocate for things in the Philippines right now, because I just had lost touch with where the mindset of the community is. You're not thinking about martial law. That's 60s, 70s, 80s stuff. You're not thinking about people power. We're beyond that. And we're talking about basic global wealth inequality. And we're talking about the class structure in the Philippines. How do you change that? If you're going to change anything about what happens with the Philippines, if you're going to change anything about why its people will stop leaving the Philippines and to take jobs and send money back, how do you do that? You got to improve the plight of the Filipinos and their work, and no one's doing that. So
Yeah, structurally, the problem is cultural and
yeah,
structural.
right.
Right.
And if it weren't for people like La Perholes, we wouldn't know. I mean, he's out there. He's putting his life on the line.
The sad thing is that it's his and the others' sacrifice of life that brings this to our attention, or at least the situation to our attention. The all overall circumstances are ongoing.
Yeah,
Okay, San Francisco Standard report was really quite good.
yeah.
You know, very good reporting.
But
Very
you
complete.
don't see it. You don't see it picked up by AP. You don't see it.
You don't see it picked up.
Widely.
Yeah, I was looking at the Quran. The earliest thing that I saw about Lyle being killed was in. Well, actually, you're a contributor to Inquirer.net.
Yeah.
And so the earliest report that I saw was just something that came off of the U.S. Bureau, April 26th.
April 26th. See, I didn't. He died April 19th. I didn't see it until like now, because the family, his wife's back there trying to find his body, or trying to get answers. It's so sad.
Yeah, there is a memorial, I think, going on right now at Bindlestiff Theater. Yeah, I was planning on attending that, but I thought it was more for us. Well, this podcast is potentially right a greater source of information. More people may see this than the attendance at any of the events. The event at SF State last night was good, but it was sparse because classes are over. They're in finals now.
So not many people were there.
Well, it was it looked like a decent crowd. KTVU covered it, and they did a pretty good job. You might want to check out what they did. They did also a good job of getting the correct and accurate information about the NPA, etc. Anyway, so
well, all right.
I was really saddened by this. Because Lyle was a really good guy. I just remember him as being very bright and vivacious. He's always a kind person, a very kind person, respectful and very honorable. So he was exactly the kind of person that you would like to see doing good work for others, and he had this level of commitment, and here we have lost several who also had that level of commitment to the gun, to a very violent, repressive government, and that is overall very very depressing to me. I mean, it
Yeah.
reminds me so much of what people were struggling against during the first Marcos administration, and
Yeah.
and how long it took for people to finally turn around. And then here we are, right back where we were. I don't, I don't think on a territorial level that it is as bad as it was during the height of Marcos one oppression,
Mm.
but the fact that the people of Negros are still experiencing this, that the people in the mountain regions of Luzon and down in Mindanao, that they're still experiencing this,
Yeah.
uh, is disheartening. To say it's disheartening, it's just it pains me to use that kind of language. It's
Yeah.
both
Well,
disheartening and angering.
the NPA is still there. The NPA was there during Duterte. The NPA has always been there. You don't hear much about the NPA,
Well, that
but
they don't want you to hear much about them.
yeah,
They're really good for the most part at run and hide.
yeah.
Um, so
But
uh,
it's sad that that well, Filipino Americans, we discuss why we feel compelled to have this connection with the Philippines and to go there. And that was my first question. I thought, well, why was he doing that? I didn't understand. Uh, I didn't understand Frijoles, and now talking about him, getting more information, I think I do. And I'm sorry that it was not on my radar to the degree that it should have. But
well, there are people who make choices here in the United
mm,
States to serve the
yeah,
Filipino American community. There are people who I've had students who are not Filipino American that
yeah,
chose because once they understood what was going on in the Filipino, they were excited by their participation
yeah,
with Filipinos in the community, and they dedicated much of their youth to working in nonprofit organizations to serve Filipino American interests and needs.
yeah,
Uh, so, uh, so you have to understand when people make those kinds of commitments, they're really tried and true humanitarian commitments, and I don't think they get enough credit. I don't think people look at them seriously enough.
yeah.
Too much of our culture is worried about, uh, and rightfully so, worried about just making a living, just being able
Right.
to. Now, there's so many people who are not just worried about making a living; they're worried about real survival. Right?
Yeah.
Those are the circumstances that we've got.
Well, I mean, if AI takes over, we'll have a lot of free time. We can devote
Yeah,
to
that's another thing
humanitarian
that we need to
interests.
be talking about is we need to be talking about that. Where are
Yeah.
the jobs going to be? Is there such a thing as retraining for jobs
Yeah.
that will not
Well,
be overtaken by AI?
yeah. I'm hearing people who I never would have thought uh, who are considering trades, right?
Well, yeah,
Because you can't have AI go in there and like fix your plumbing
and
or you
well,
can't.
it's people should have understood that a long time ago. Once again, that's class attitude, right? That's
Yeah.
class attitude. People don't want to be farm workers because of
Yeah.
you're working outside, you're working in the dirt, it's hard work, and it's low pay. Okay,
Yeah.
so who wants to do that? Now they're going to suffer from this. Everybody who's got that attitude, they're going to suffer from this. Okay,
Yeah.
um, uh, I don't know if you had relatives that were working the farms. I had
Mm.
relatives that worked on the
Yeah.
farms until they well past what we would call retirement age, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And in non-union circumstances, right?
Oh yeah.
People who
Yeah.
they were from the same hometown as my dad, so that I
Yeah.
grew up around them. I watched the younger members of those families, the all male family of brothers that were here, their entire working life, right? And then they were told they were advised by people like our moms, right?
Mm.
You got to get
Yeah.
married, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to take care of your ass when you're over 60 years old?
Yeah.
You might qualify from Social Security. You haven't been collecting that much Social Security because your pay isn't that high. You got to
Yeah.
get married, and they did. They would do the pen pal thing, right? They would be
Yeah.
introduced by family members. I saw. Did you see all of that? All of that kind of dynamic going
Oh
on?
yeah. Oh, I did. I did. Hey, since you mentioned moms, and since we're ready to close,
I'm supplying you with a wonderful segue, man. I mean, I had this all figured out.
well, let's talk about our Mother's Day is coming up, and why don't you share the one most important thing about your mom that you'll remember on Mother's Day? We'll both go. Go
Oh
ahead.
wow.
What, or
Oh
you can make
wow.
it two if there's two
Well,
things.
can we go with two? We
Yeah,
can
yeah,
go with
yeah.
two. Okay. I think the one that my dad and I would probably most appreciate, right?
Mm.
The most positive thing is she knew how to save money,
Oh yeah.
and frankly, it was a hardship socially for her because a lot of the other women who were also Bisayan, right?
Mm.
And I called them the PBS, right? The Pinay Broadcasting System. They're
Yeah.
gossipers, and
Ah.
she was
Yeah.
not she was not well liked enough, nor did she play the role that you had to play as a socialite. You know, she wasn't.
Hmm.
She liked being seen and recognized and all that, right? But but she wasn't as much of a socialite as a lot of the other moms, and so she was an outie. She was an outie in that regard, and so they would say, you know, she's really tightwad. You know, she and she was frugal, but she wasn't a tightwad, you know.
Yeah.
And my dad was actually very generous. I mean, and both of them sent money like crazy back to the Philippines in support of their families, and they
Yeah.
both put at least one generation of people through college and universities, and they became professionals, and they in turn supported their families, and so they created right a lot of very positive wealth that was shared, right? That it was if it wasn't for that pattern, the Philippines would be an even poorer place, right? Right? If it if it wasn't for
Yeah.
remittances, yeah, okay, it
Yeah.
was even a poorer place. And so that was that was a huge segment of what we call the Filipino economy, right?
Yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah. It
you
still
know,
is. So your mom's
that's the reality.
frugality.
Yeah, that's the
Frugality.
reality. So that's my
Uh,
mom. That's one
that's
aspect. The other one
yeah.
was
Yeah.
how she was very she put like a lot of people, a lot of Filipino immigrants, they put a lot of emphasis on education.
Yeah.
And she uh taught me how to read by
Hmm.
rudimentary reading by the time I was 3.
Hmm.
So and I am not at all a prodigy. Uh
Yeah.
but she had me reading at 3. That also had a was a problem for me because when I read things when I went to kindergarten, she pushed me a little early, and I was only 4. She stuck
Ooh.
me into a
Ooh.
kindergarten class.
So
Oh no!
you were
I
socially.
read something,
Yeah.
and the teacher did not believe that I read it. So
Ah. Thought you were lying.
she said I need to speak to one of your parents. And so my dad was working at a bakery, and so he was off work. You know, they started like 3:34 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And he's done because he was in a baker's apprentice. He was done by noon, and so he could come to kindergarten and pick me up as soon as school let out. You know, it's a half day, right?
Yeah.
And he had a meeting with this teacher, and he said, "Yeah, you wanted to talk to us. Well, your son's creating problems in the classroom." And he said, "Well, what kind of problems are there?" She goes, "Well, he's pretending to read, and it's disruptive because other kids ask him to read things."
Ah, so she thought you were lying and disruptive. You weren't
Yes,
really, you were
yes,
making
I was
things up.
pretending. I was
Oh,
pretending, and so
pretending.
he had a copy of the news call under his. This was in a day when there were still 5 newspapers, right, in San
Yeah.
Francisco. He had a copy of the news call, and under his arm, and it was Armistice Day for Korean War. And he points at one of the sidebars, and he says, what does that say?" And I read it, and she went really pale.
Yeah.
And so he goes, "So what did he do? Did he memorize the front page of the newspaper, and then pretend, right?" And then the last thing he said to her was, "If this is the way you teach, my son doesn't need this school." And
Oh, yeah.
away, yeah. I mean, I thought,
It's good.
wow. My
Oh,
dad did something
unfortunately,
really bad, man. He did something that was really. They always tell me to be respectful to the teacher, and my dad like bitch slapped this
yeah.
teacher.
Unfortunately, it condemned you to 13 years of Catholic school.
Yeah,
So no public school. No public school for this guy. Hey, I
yeah,
can
and
read. It's a
four of them Jesuit.
the grace of
Yeah.
God enabled me to
Oh my
read.
god.
All right, well
But
that's
that's
good.
my mom. How about your
That's
mom,
your
man?
mom.
How
All
about your
right,
mom?
well my mom was really she was the lamb. She was so kind. And she and this was at odds with, my wanting to be aggressive and fight. And my mom was, oh, just, be nice. And, and sometimes I wish if I was more like my mom, I wouldn't be all the me that I am now, of course. But I think I would have been further ahead because I wouldn't have been as alienating and as polarizing, and I wouldn't have been as American as I am. I mean, my mom had this, she, was reverent, went to church all the time, prayed all the time, always prays, she would say, and she was kind. She was like the lamb. She was she would be deferential to such a degree that offended me at some point. And I know that as I was growing up, I said, no, I can't be like that, Mom. But in retrospect, as I get older, I say, oh, if I was more like my mom, because in the end, because my father died uh, when I was just 22, and it was my mom who was still kind of guiding me, although I was really on my own. But I would always see my mom, more often than I like to think. And she, as I get older, I realize if I was more like her, maybe things would have been a little different. I would have been seen as a different kind of person because a lot of people. I mean, I don't know if how nice I was early on. I don't know how because I was hell bent on being just slightly aggressive and slightly different. And uh, anyway, my mom was so kind and and reverent and she was. But you cross her and out comes the paddle, right? She'll get you. She get you.
Woohoo!
So anyway, my mom was kind. The second thought about my mom, she she didn't say. She would always emphasize that health was more important than wealth, and I think that kind of got into me. The Not that I didn't pursue money or a career or any of that, but it gave me the right perspective in which to put things, so that if I didn't want to go to business school or law school or make a ton of money, that was all right. It was okay just to be normal. It was okay, and that the most important thing was your health. You would always say your health is your wealth, and certainly today or last night when I had that fever and I didn't know what was going on, I realized how important health was. So those are two mom thoughts that I'll be thinking about on Mother's Day when I think about my mom. So
Was your mom? Was your mom? Have you eaten it, mom? Have you
she
eaten
was
it?
a oh yeah, she was a have and my mom she would cook for me and she would cook a Philippine breakfast, with tapa and rice
Oh yeah,
and
man.
and then when the and longanisa if we had longanisa sausages and the football games were on early, so the football games were on like at 10 in the morning, and so she would bring me my football brunch, and I'd watch football on my TV tray with my white rice and tapa and longanisa. And no, she never put
How about
she,
camates? Camates, man. You had
oh
camates
yeah,
in the
tomatoes.
tapa.
Oh yeah, tomatoes. Yeah, yeah,
Camates
yeah,
and
yeah.
the rice and the tapa. That's really good.
Yeah.
That is really
Oh
good.
yeah. Yeah. The top. And I wasn't necessarily a good artist, but I had to do an essay when I was in third grade or second grade and draw a picture of my favorite food. And how do you draw tapa? Tapa is just like little brown strips of meat, and it looks like brown pieces of pre-digested poop
Nah,
or something.
the closest thing it looks like is a little bit of chubby. It looks like chubby jerky.
Chubby jerky, yeah. It looks like a little thicker jerky. Anyway, but tapas, that was a thing. And I didn't think of it, um, as being more than, it was beef or some kind of steak, but thin sliced,
Thin, very thin.
or yeah, and then you fry it to death, and it gets all it gets kind of like jerky almost,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and greasy, and you put a lot of soy sauce and vinegar and oil and grease and garlic and
Oh, you're missing the key ingredient, dude.
oh, what,
Pineapple juice.
oh, we did not put pineapple juice in the
Oh,
tapa.
okay. Woo.
You put pineapple juice?
Oh yeah,
That must have been a
that's
that
the marinade. That's the marinade for the tapas.
yeah.
That's where the sugar came from.
That must have been in the Visayan recipe because
I'm
we
I'm
had
no, my mother was not a good cook.
you
I
wasn't
yeah, thank goodness my dad was a better could cook.
the
No,
the
my mother couldn't
Ilocano's.
cook, and it was an adventure for her.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
made a couple of things. She did a couple of things well, like Visayan style puto.
yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
She was okay with that. She could do this Visayan rice dish. Was loose rice. It was sweet rice, and it's loose, but like not fluffy. It was kind of like Japanese sticky rice in
Oh yeah,
consistency,
yeah, yeah,
and it was cooked with coconut milk
yeah.
and ginger. So it had
Oh
a
yeah, oh gee,
distinct
yeah,
smell. It had this distinct smell, and we had an uncle, uh, Mariano Villa. His last name was Villa, and they lived out in the Richmond, not too far from you, and
yeah.
but he made that dish during it was a Christmas thing, and he
Yeah.
made that so good, man, and that
Hey,
the whole house would smell like that, and you could not wait until that was done, you know, as
yeah.
kids, and you had that with chocolate, you had it
Oh
with
yeah,
chocolate,
yeah. Hey, the guys are the good cooks in the Filipino households, but the moms are good. It just depends. Like my dad
Some were
was a
good,
cook.
some were good,
Yeah,
but a
yeah,
lot of them learned from their husbands.
yeah, yeah.
My
My dad was
mother-in-law
a cook.
learned from her husband initially, right? And then
Yeah.
she picked things up from like her Chinese neighbor down the street,
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like that. And so she learned and was doing some really good cooking. But
yeah.
by the time
All
the
right,
kids were teenagers, she was really good.
all
But
right.
my
Some
mother could not cook.
memories.
There was no way.
Some memories of our mom that
Oh
we
yeah,
will have this weekend. So, Dan, I'm getting a funny light that says my machine here isn't charging. So, let me just
we can wrap.
thank you.
We can wrap.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for talking about this. I talk all about some other stuff like this hit piece that Tom Steyer sent out about Becerra. I talked about that in yesterday's show 700. But I don't know. I think Becerra, unfortunately, is the best of this lot. He may not be the best possible candidate. I read the story. I read the New York Times story, and you got to blame not just Becerra. You also have to blame the employers, and you also have to blame the
Yeah,
people who exploited the people who wanted to be sponsors and took advantage of the situation. I think Becerra has been good politician, meaning his boss didn't want to see tent cities of these unaccompanied migrant kids. These aren't the kids who were taken away from Trump from their mothers. This was the case of the large number, over 100,000 unaccompanied minors from Guatemala and Central America. They
yeah,
were in tent cities and in shelters, and it was an emergency what to do with this. And he facilitated it and got them all into society, but that's where the trouble began. And so, not all Becerra's fault, but I don't think enough to make you say he's not the guy for governor. Not when he's running against Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton and all these other folks who I don't care. Katie Porter,
as much
Tom
as I
Steyer.
hate to say it, Hilton is doing a damn good job of avoiding pitfalls and sounding
Yes.
sounding rational.
Unfortunately, I think you're right, and I'm in a neighborhood where I actually saw a Chad Bianco sign
Oh
today.
shit!
Yes, that's not
Ouch!
making me feel too
Oath
good.
keeper. Oh, it's
All right,
former oath keeper,
yeah, all
and he
right.
says
So
proudly a former member.
yeah, right. So all right. So we'll talk about more of that next week. Uh, so
More
Dan,
culture. Let our people know. We're not just talking about Filipino culture. We're going to be talking about as much as we can. We are Filipino American, but we do
yeah,
know a lot about. We have a lot of contacts all
yeah,
throughout the Asian American communities. A
yeah,
lot
and
of
we'll talk
contacts,
about that.
and we're going to talk more about cultural stuff. And
Yeah,
I certainly want to talk about artists. We don't
yeah,
talk enough about featured artists. We got a lot of history as artists and
yeah,
contributors. Besides the people, right, that get monuments built to them,
yeah,
locally
yeah.
in Oakland and San Francisco, there's a lot of other artists as well.
Oh
But
yeah.
you
All
know,
right. So yeah, we're broadening out and talking about stuff. So look, Dan, I'll be talking to you. Thanks for joining us this time, and happy Mother's Day to you, and
and to
and
Kathy as
yeah,
well.
and
You
say
know,
to your family as well,
I'm
and
taking her
you
out
know,
for a brunch. We're going out for a brunch. This is
yeah,
it's becoming a tradition now.
yeah, yeah. That's good. Mother's Day brunch. I have a surprise. I don't know, but I'll be
Not
thinking
a
about.
chocolate covered bunny. It's left over from Easter, dude.
No, no, no talking, everybody. All right, Dan. All right, thanks, man. We'll see you
Okay.
again soon.
All
There he
right.
goes, my friend Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, San Francisco State University, Professor Emeritus. Professor Emeritus. Man, I'm glad that we kind of lightened it up at the end, but I'm glad we talked about Lauproholis. And I feel bad. I mean, he was an activist. He put your life on the line like that under the circumstances. He's in there in Negros. He gets mistaken for the MPA. The Philippine government, the army, shoots and kills 19. He's one of the 19. Anyway, remember Lyle Proholis. Ah. And then, we lightened it up, talked about our moms. I love my mom, but I know I was a little bit of a rebel. I wanted to, I know if I was a little bit more like my mom, I think I'd be better off. That's how I feel right now. Anyway, hey, don't forget this thing 69 Emil Amok Anchorman. It's my show at the San Diego International Fringe Festival. Go to sdfringe.org for tickets. Starts Wednesday or Thursday. I forget. Wednesday or Thursday. I'll be there. Oh, Thursday. Thursday. So it's Thursday. And here's the thing. Yeah. 514. What is 514? I think 514 should be. Good. 514, May 14th. Oh, that's Thursday. Search opens Thursday. Oh, I got one more day. 514 to the 23rd at the New Destiny Church. They have a nice little theater set up there. New Destiny Church. Soft seats, I understand. So show's less than an hour. 69 Emil Muck Anchorman, where I bring out my inner Ron Burgundy. Yeah, I'm in Sacramento, so I got to keep it classy. San Diego. Did I say Sacramento? I meant San Diego. All right. We like to close with a little meditation, a little loving kindness. Oh, and hello to all the people out there who dropped by, who sent little notes. Phil Perganon, Erilyn Hughes. Hi, Erilyn. Hope to get to Texas soon. Phil Perganon. He loves his Dan Gonzalez. So, hello to all those people who stopped by and all those people who are listening. Wherever you are, on X, on Facebook. I'd like to close with a little meditation. The loving kindness meditation. It's Sharon Salzberg's prayer, if you will. loving kindness. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time, Mahal Kita.